As you all saw this morning, the chef de cabinet, Courtney Rattray, delivered remarks on behalf of the Secretary General at today's Security Council meeting on the situation in the Middle East. In the remarks, he asserted that nothing can justify the horrific attacks of terror committed by Hamas and other armed groups in Israel on 7 October, and nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. The Secretary General noted that the high death toll in Gaza, adding that almost 2 million people have now been displaced. That's nearly the entire population of Gaza, and many of those people have been displaced multiple times, as we've been telling you. Nowhere in Gaza is safe, he reasserted. In the remarks, the Secretary General also warned that recent developments are driving a stake through the heart of any prospect for a two-state solution. The geography of the occupied West Bank is steadily being altered through Israeli administrative and legal steps. The chef de cabinet, on the Secretary General's behalf, also reiterated our call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, and his push for intensified efforts to increase humanitarian aid delivery. International support for these efforts is critical, particularly for the essential work of UNRWA, it was added. Turning to the situation on the ground, our humanitarian colleagues report that Israeli military has stopped all aid missions going from north of Wadi Gaza today. This means that humanitarian workers were unable to reach any of the hundreds of thousands of people in need. It also made it impossible for them to collect supplies from northern entry points of Erez West, where a lot of the supplies are coming into Gaza. OCHA has received multiple reports of military activity along the Israeli military road that separates the north and the south of Gaza. Meanwhile, OCHA has seen large numbers of displaced people crossing from Gaza City into Deir al-Balah Governorate, at least 450 people today compared to just over 1,000 the week prior. Some of those new arrivals told aid workers that Israeli troops had shot at people trying to cross, forcing them to turn around. OCHA has not been able to OCHA has not been able to independently verify these reports, but as we have said repeatedly, civilians in Gaza must be protected and their essential needs must be met wherever they are. The head of UNRWA said that at least 8 schools in Gaza have been hit in the last 10 days. In a social media post on X, Philippe Lazzarini stressed that schools are not a target and must never be used for fighting or any military purposes by any party in this conflict. UNRWA said that nearly 70% of the agency's school buildings have been hit since the war began. Over 95% of these facilities, these school facilities, were being used as shelters when they were hit. Almost 540 people sheltering in UNRWA facilities have been killed since 7th of October. The World Food Program, for its part, says that it has been forced to further reduce rations in Gaza City to ensure broader coverage for people who have been newly displaced. In July, WFP provided some 600,000 people in Gaza with food assistance and over 500,000 people with food parcels or wheat flour for their consumption. For its part, the World Health Organization says that as of today, just 15 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are just partially functioning, and just 1,500 of the usual 3,500 hospital beds in Gaza are currently available. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. I just wanted to clarify something. Is the reason that no aid moved north of Wadi Gaza, the reported military activity, is that why?
Well, I mean, we're you know, my understanding is when the crossings are closed, the checkpoints are closed, we're not really given an explanation. At the same time, we have seen reports of military activity, so I think that's the deduction, but it's not as if we're given
So the crossing was closed by the Israelis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you also tell us what's getting out of the port of Ashdod? Is anything getting out of there?
Yes, there are some materials that are coming in through the through the Cyprus maritime corridors, and the aid collection, through the mechanism that Sigrid Kaag and her team have put together, and that includes shipments through Ashdod, and that go in to Gaza, mostly through Eretz West. But I will try to get you exactly what is coming in.
And any update on what's coming in from Kerem Shalom?
No, not. I mean, just the update that I did get is that since the beginning of July, we and our partners have been able to collect more than 1,300 truckloads of supplies from all of the entry ports into Gaza combined. Those are mostly food items. Erez West accounts for the largest proportion of commodities. That was followed by the floating dock, then Kerem Shalom, and then the crossing, so-called Gate 96. It's a slight improvement over June, which was about 1,090 truckloads, but it's well below what we need. Pam, then Gabriel.
There are reports today that Israel is setting up a floating port in the same location.
That I have not seen.
And in terms of the port itself, you've given a lot of briefings on this, but...
The port?
I mean, the floating port.
Dock, yeah.
Is the floating port still physically there? And what... some of the goods were left on the dock and then abandoned for a while, and some people took it?
What the status of the floating dock is a question for the United States, because it's their dock, it's not ours. So I can't speak to whether it's there or not there. For the UN system, directly has not picked up goods from there for quite some time. Over the last, I think last week and into the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, our colleagues on the ground had hired private contractors to pick up what was destined for the UN from that holding area, because we have a security concern for our staff, but we also have a huge concern that all this effort to bring this aid in, and that we don't want that aid to go to waste. So that was picked up through private contractors and sent to the warehouse in Deir el-Bala, and then for further distribution. Your microphone, please. Sorry.
Just clarification. Private contractors hired by the UN to bring it to the...
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.